I'm going to show you how to take this simple arpeggio form, make it sound Ionian, or we can move it over a little bit and get more of a Lydian kind of vibe. And then if we shift it a little bit more, we can get more of a mixolydian sound. And then I'll give you a few other fun little tricks to play around with in just a sec, so stick around. Hey, welcome to the lesson. My name is Chris Emerson. I'm the author of the book Elevated Improv, as well as the lead teacher for the course of the same name. And I'm going to share 3 tricks that you can use to kind of get more bang for your buck when improvising over a major chord. I set up this kind of E major vamp, and that's what we're going to base everything off of. So we're going to use one really easy to play chord shape. The shape I'm going to show you is just a minor shape, starting with the root note on the D string, 6 of D, 4 of G, 4 of B, 4 of E, and then we're going to go pinky finger up here on the 7th fret, and then just retrace our steps. That is the form we're going to use for all 3 of these little tricks. Here's the trick. When you're playing over a major chord, I'm going to have you try 3 different things. Whatever the major third of the chord is, place your root note for the minor arpeggio on that note. So when we're playing an E major chord, G sharp is the major third of E, and so we're going to start our arpeggio there. That's why I had you just do that. The next version I'm going to give you, and by the way, that first version, if you base it off of the major third, will create more of an Ionian kind of vibe. Ionian is just, it's another way to say the major scale. The next version I'm going to show you here is going to give more of a Lydian kind of vibe. So what we do is take that same form that we played here and move it up so that your ring finger is on the major 7th of the chord you're playing over. So here's a shortcut for finding the major 7th of any chord. Whatever chord you're playing, in this case it's E, just go 1 fret to the left and that's the major 7th. So what I'm going to do is go to the 13th fret of the D string, because the 14th fret is the note E, that's our tonic. I'll go 1 fret to the left. So we're just going to do that exact same arpeggio that I showed you down here. Let's do the third version, which will give off more of a mixolydian vibe, which is what you would play over an E7 chord, potentially, a dominant chord. And the trick here to get more of a mixolydian vibe is to take that minor arpeggio form and put it on the 5th of the chord you're playing. So if we think about it, okay, what's the 5th of E? The 5th of E is B. And the way you can find that really quickly is this. Here's a little trick. A lot of us know and love power chords, you know, like a form like that. So what I'm doing is going to the 3rd dot, which is the note E. I play a power chord. The note that isn't the root of that chord is the 5th. That is what a power chord is. It's also called a 5th chord. So then what I can do is if I play that power chord, I can just get rid of that E and then play the arpeggio that we already talked about, and you'll get more of a mixolydian vibe. But now let me actually put the track on and play over it so you can just hear it. Here's Ionian. The reason that gives off more of an Ionian vibe is it has a major 7th in it. But I have to make one point here. Just because it has a major 7th doesn't necessarily mean it's Ionian, because the 4th degree of every key that you play in is Lydian, and that chord that is produced from that position is also a major 7th chord. So it's not quite enough information to tell us one way or the other, is this Ionian or is this Lydian? But what I'm going to show you now is a couple, we'll call them color tones, that you can add to that shape to start to spice it up a little bit more and to kind of narrow down the sound that you really want to get to come across. On the graphic I'm going to show here, the red dots will indicate the original arpeggio form, the notes that were in that arpeggio. And then in blue, the blue dots are going to be the color tones that are just kind of like sprinkled in and they're extra, and they narrow down that sound. Here we go. I'm going to go in order and show you what I mean here. So it'll be like this. dots will represent these notes. I'll go from the highest to the lowest. Like that. I added this note here on the 5th fret of the high E string, which is an A. That is the perfect fourth of E. If it were Lydian, it would have a raised fourth, so we can make the inference that that isn't Lydian because it's a perfect fourth. So I'm going to add in these color tones and improvise a little more. Everything I just showed you in this Ionian position, based off the major third of E, everything will apply the same as we move up to Lydian. It's just that because of the movement and where we're starting, it'll sound completely different, or at least to me it does. So as you look at the graphic here, you can see that the red dots are the same as before. And the blue dots are going to be the same as before as well. So now here are the blue dots. Well, I'll include all of them. From high to low, the color tones that we're adding are going to be. That's all that we added to the arpeggio. So same pattern, just move it up and it'll sound completely different. So here it goes. I'm going to put the track on. I haven't changed anything with that, only the position where I'm playing. I'm going to play the same kinds of licks and you'll see how it sounds. The reason that I'm saying it sounds Lydian is because one of the fundamental special qualities about Lydian is it has a raised fourth. And I just said, when talking about the original position, that the note A is the perfect fourth of E. And so therefore, if we want to play a raised fourth, we just raise that A to an A sharp. Here's the note right here that's an A sharp. That is like the real reason it comes across sounding that way instead of Ionian that had the A natural. Next up, let's go to the third version of this. The same arpeggio and everything with the red dots to kind of set the tone, but this one will have some different color tones. So the 5th of E is B. I'm going to do that. Like that. So there's our red dots we've been working with. For the color tones, it's going to be a little different now. So we're going to go like this for the color tones. From high to low, the specific color tones that are the blue dots will be like this. So just a few notes that we're adding into the original form. Something to think about here is this note here on the 10th fret of the B string is the note A. When you're playing over an E chord, you want to be careful not to hang on that note too long. It will really kind of have a this kind of dissonance to it because the E major chord has a G sharp in it, and then A is just a semitone up from it. If you look at the blue dots that are here, we do have one here on the 9th fret. That is G sharp. The one above it is the A. So it's not, I'm not saying don't play the A, but don't hang on it. If you're going to resolve one of your phrases, try to land on G sharp because it's a chord tone of E, and it's just going to be more satisfying and pleasing to the ear. So here we go. Here's the mixolydian vibe. All right, now as we go back down to the original position we were talking about with G sharp minor against an E, giving it that Ionian feel. We had the red dots for the arpeggio, the blue dots for the color tones. There's one other really simple thing to do here to kind of tie everything together, and that's just think simultaneously of the shape that I just showed you, and then also of an E major shape. And you're going to see they're almost identical. So here's what I mean. If you play this form, that's a G sharp minor. But if we, instead of playing a D sharp here on the 4th fret of B, if we raise that note up to an E, it turns it into an E major first inversion. So what I mean by that is if I had my pinky finger here, a lot of people think of that as the C shape from Caged. And if I peel away pinky finger, I'm left with ring finger on 6 of D, just like we were doing before. But now notice that I have the middle finger here. That one little change, just it kind of strengthens the sound of the chord in its E majorness. So I'm going to put on the track again. I'm going to start with more of that trick we started with the minor arpeggio, and then I'm just going to add the middle finger a little bit, and you'll just hear the difference. It's going to be subtle, but I think it's really useful and can just bring a little more variety to your playing. There's a lot you can do with that still if you do like major pentatonic stuff. There's some bends you can do here. So if you have your index sliding up to the 5th fret of the B string, there's this kind of classic bend we can do. So now I'm going to do all the stuff I just talked about, but I'll just include that one little thing. Actually, I fibbed. I'm going to add one more bend on the 7th fret of the E string. So we'll have a bend on the 7th fret of B and a bend on the 7th fret of E, like this. Next, as we move up to the Lydian position, I had you starting on the 11th fret of the D string, same arpeggio form. The cool thing here is that everything I just showed you with Ionian will work equally with Lydian, but it'll have a different sound. Okay, one more position to check out. We can use the same kinds of bends that we did in the Ionian position, the Lydian position, but they're going to sound way different. So we're going to have those bends. In this case now, it's going to be on 10 of the B string, like that. And then the other one we'll do is on the 10th fret of the high E string. The other thing I'm going to have you think about here is your E minor pentatonic scale. Here's the pentatonic pattern I'm talking about. So if we, instead of starting on the 9th fret, let's include this note here on the 7th fret of D, like that, and then a lot of us probably shift up with the index finger, so more like this. And maybe even use the ring finger here. I'm probably going to do that as I get into the jam because I'm going to end up bending. I just want to show that bend I talked about a little bit ago. So take all this stuff with a grain of salt. Make it your own, change whatever you want, and hopefully you get something out of it. So here is the mixolydian vibe. I'm going to include the minor pentatonic position that I just talked about and those couple bends. So between all those things, there's just a ton to play around with. And again, my favorite part is that instead of thinking of, playing different modes as like a scale pattern, I think it's much easier to take like a chord shape like this and get that same result without having to do all this math in your head or think of all these different scales. I know I don't want to have to think that much when I'm playing, and this is such an easier, more effective way to do it to me. So everybody's their own player and has their own way of going about things, but I hope this gave you something to play around with, or at least something different to think about. Also, I created a free guide sheet with all these little arpeggio forms with the red dots and the blue dots, so you can use it as a reference. That link will be in the description. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the video, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.